I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're delving into the powerful and transformative books by Patrick Palmer, author of A Husband's Guide to Hands-On Caregiving, Are You Prepared to Be a Caregiver? And The Healing of a Caregiver. Through his deeply personal journey of caring for his wife, Patrick offers practical guidance for caregivers, emotional support, and invaluable insights into the healing process after loss. His work serves as a lifeline for anyone navigating the challenging world of caregiving and recovery. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the agency for helping us put him in the spotlight today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his compelling books. The links are below this interview. Patrick, good to see you here today on Spotlight.
Good to see you, Logan. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. These books are so important. So many people nowadays are put into the position of being a caregiver, whether it's a spouse or a child looking after a parent, and that child could be a senior, him or herself in some cases. With your case, you became a caregiver when you needed to take care of your wife when she fell ill, right?
Correct.
Tell us what that was like. I guess this was uncharted territory for you. You never thought you'd be helping your wife in that capacity.
Yeah, it was a tough because I really didn't know anybody who was in my position.
Mhm.
And so a lot of it was learn as you go.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we had a very, very good relationship. So she understood what was going on and she would help me to help her, which was good. And but it's still a sad process.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a sad process because in many cases, you realize they're not going to get better. And it can be years of caregiving. It can be exhausting physically and emotionally. So what's your best advice out there? You've got these three books out there and they all look great. They all look very, very helpful. I guess making sure you take care of yourself a little bit as you're going along. I know you're a pilot. You got to put that mask on yourself first and then put it on others, right?
Yeah, that was one of the most important messages I was trying to get across to the reader is take care of yourself. And if you let yourself go downhill, you're not going to do yourself or your loved one any good whatsoever. So I made it a point of being very active, watching my diet, and being able to apply my skills to caregiving for her.
At one point, you got a little help. It became too much for you to do it all by yourself.
Yeah, it got to the point where the whole caregiving process took 53 months.
Mm.
And after about a year of doing it full time myself, I realized I needed help.
Yeah.
And so she was happened to have fallen again, and I had her in a rehab center for 2 or 3 days. And the attending suggested that I get a full time caregiving company in. So they gave me a couple of contacts. I phoned, I interviewed the two companies, and I hired a particular company. And they came in
Yeah.
and helped me help her. And
Yeah.
so it was a great relationship. We were there for she was basically 2.5 to 3 years with this company as well
Yeah.
as me. Yeah.
Now, did insurance help with that? Was it a huge financial burden? Tell us about that aspect of it.
Well, yes, I had long-term care insurance, which I'm
Mm.
glad I did. They paid about 40% of the cost of caregiving, but it
Mm.
still cost me $550,000 for the
Wow.
caregiving.
I mean, that could wipe out most people's retirement savings
Oh yeah.
easily. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And but to me, it was worth every dollar
Sure.
to help her.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You just wanted to make her as comfortable and as happy as possible during the years she had left with you, and
Right.
that's very, very true. Let's go through your books one by one. Let's talk first about A Husband's Guide to Hands-On Caregiving. Tell us about that book. Give us a little bit of an overview.
Here it is right here.
Yep. Yep.
Anyway, yeah, it's really these three books are based on my personal experiences in the caregiving environment. And people may or may not relate to what I went through. They may be having different sets of circumstances altogether. So it was really, as I mentioned, I started out as journaling after my wife died, and people encouraged me to turn it into books, which I did. And the first one is what you need to do as an individual for hands-on caregiving, and talks about everything from having to take her to a commode, having to bathe her, all the stuff.
Yeah,
And I think I think most people will relate to it if they're
yeah,
in a type of caregiving environment like I was.
yeah. Yeah,
So,
like I said, all of us nowadays, because, people are living longer and longer. I mean, there are people 60, 70 years old who still have parents,
right,
and they have parents into their 90s and beyond.
right.
And, so there is a lot of caregiving out there. And I think the goal for most people, if at all possible, is to keep them out of a facility, to keep them home. And I guess that was your goal too, that you wanted to keep her home, right?
Oh yeah. And she
Yeah.
wanted to be home
Yeah.
after after her initial diagnosis, and she knew she was in a rough state.
Yeah.
She said, "I want to stay home. I really want to stay home. This is my comfort zone."
Yeah.
And I said, "Definitely, you'll stay here. I will
Yeah.
bring caregivers in."
Yeah. Um, what were the manifestations of her illness? Was she had mobility issues, I presume? Did she have dementia from it? Tell us a little bit about your wife's condition.
Yeah, well, after it was diagnosed, she had the very next morning at 5 a.m., she had brain surgery. It was about a 10.5 hour procedure.
Hmm.
And when we went and saw her up in intensive care, she was pretty alert.
Hmm.
And then from that point, um, she didn't really get into any state of dementia, but physically, you could tell there was some challenges.
Hmm.
So the doctors there suggested what I needed to care for her at home, which I got myself well equipped. And then as time went on, finally had to get our doctor to declare her in hospice care. And when that's done, and it can be done at home, you don't have to go to any rehab institute for that. And once that's declared, then a lot of things are supplied for you, like walkers and a registered nurse that will come twice a week, 3 times a week, depending on the severity of her case. And which was a godsend to me to have that kind of support and be able to get the right kind of equipment for her to get around.
Yeah. Yeah, I know when the body breaks down, you need so many tools to replace what people can normally do,
Oh yeah,
from walkers to handrails to special toilet seats. I had elderly parents. I'm very, very familiar with caregiving from that aspect of it. And all of those tools are helpful. And it's amazing how much, like I said, you need. How about family? Was family there to help and rally around during this time?
oh yeah, yeah. They were very good, and of course it was great for my wife to see her grandchildren
Yeah,
as well, and that was a big part of her life were grandkids. She
yeah,
spoiled them like crazy,
yeah,
as most mothers do,
yeah,
and but the kids were very helpful. They would go and do grocery shopping. They would do all those kinds of chores that I needed to do, but I felt I couldn't leave.
right.
And so if I wasn't with her or a professional caregiver wasn't with her, I wouldn't leave her alone with anyone else. She
Yeah,
needed that support.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, your love for her is palpable, and I know she knows that too, because you took such great care of her, and you're honoring her now with these books that will help others. What do you hope people take away from your books?
I just hope people, especially those who are not in a caregiving situation right now, but they'll read it and they'll learn that there's a whole challenge here. There's a process you have to go through.
Mm.
And for those who are in a caregiving situation, hopefully they can relate to me and my wife and what we're doing.
Yeah.
And hopefully that will help them in their situation, but especially for those who are not caregivers at the present time, that they will learn to do things like setting up a will, setting up estate plans, those kinds of things. So you don't have to try and do all that stuff when you're in a caregiving situation.
Exactly. Yeah, you're emotionally exhausted, physically exhausted at that time. Anything that could have been done beforehand to help prepare is beyond helpful.
Right.
Patrick Palmer has written a series of powerful books that'll help you when it comes time for you to take care of a loved one. And like I said, it'll happen to all of us one time or another. Unfortunately, we'll be put in that position. And it is the ultimate service of love to do that. The books are called A Husband's Guide to Hands-On Caregiving, Are You Prepared to Be a Caregiver, and The Healing of a Caregiver, all highly recommended. These are deeply personal books, works that show his journey of caring for his wife. And Patrick, in these books, offers practical guidance for caregivers, emotional support, and invaluable insights into the healing process after loss. Patrick, thank you so much for joining me here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. Appreciate it.
I appreciate your time, sir. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.